Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com with the companionship video with yesterday's ban list discussion. We talked about standard. It was a more high production video. I don't have time to do one of those this week, so I apologize for all the people that love the quality of the video. This is just going to be a typical point and shoot Kevin rants about cards. So we talked about standard. If you haven't checked out the video, I highly suggest doing so. I spent a good 8 hours. It was funny because editing a video takes about, I would say, an hour per minute. Maybe a little under that because I'm not the greatest at video editing. So I did try and put my heart and soul and just a lot of time into that video, and it got kind of mixed reactions. Some of the longtime fans that just liked my kind of rambles hated it, and some of the people that hated my rambles loved it. So anyway, this one's just gonna be another ramble. So you're gonna get a mix of both. Again, I just don't have the time to do so. So anyway, we talked about standard. We'll talk about modern today. I don't play much Pauper, and I don't play any Legacy at all, so I'm probably the last person in the world to be talking about Legacy. And then Commander is so, I don't know, the Commander ban list to me has always made me kind of shake my head because it just seems like they threw darts at a board, or the people that are in charge of the ban list for Commander just seem to have their own little play group and ban stuff based upon what their playgroup does. And it's just kind of obnoxious, I think, with the way there's so many broken cards that are still available in Commander, and then there's some that I think could be easily unbanned. But I'm not going to talk about that. I don't consider myself anywhere near an expert when it comes to Legacy or Commander or Pauper. So anyway, we'll talk about Modern, which is a format that I used to play a ton of. In fact, it was the format that I qualified for my one and only Pro Tour, playing Soul Sisters. And since then, the meta has changed and Modern has changed a lot. The power level of Modern has just skyrocketed. People have figured out more combos. And I particularly have bowed out of Modern just because I don't like how degenerate it has become. And some people might like that sort of format where it's less about playing Magic and more about playing matchups, or even less about that and more about just assembling win conditions like I win buttons and things like that. So I know that there is every now and again you'll get to play a game of Modern, but my last few experiences, especially since the Eldrazi Winter, especially in larger tournaments, have just been, it was more based upon who can draw their hate card or who can draw their combo first. So I'll dabble my toes in Modern from time and time again, but it's still a format that I would like to see some direction. If you want to know what I'm talking about, I highly suggest going back and looking at, there's a video that I did called the top 3 cards I want banned, and then the top 3 cards I want unbanned in Modern. And I also have a video called 5 steps to bring back Modern. And I still think those videos are relevant to today. We have seen a step in the right direction with them being a little more aggressive with bannings. The latest bannings were Gitaxian Probe and Golgari Grave Troll, which I don't think either one of them necessarily needed to be banned because the format was still, quote, healthy. If you talked as far as diverse sake, that there wasn't, like, Dredge wasn't completely winning everything, and neither was the Gitaxian Probe decks, but they just felt that it was bad for the format, the flow of the format. So that is a step, I think, in the right direction. I think they should go further. So before I talk about the cards that I want banned or I want, banned, let's just go down the ban list, and I'm going to give you my opinions again. I did a video like this not too long ago, like a year ago. And let's just go down the list and see why they're banned. Ancient Den, all the artifact lands would break Affinity. Next, Birthing Pod. I think Birthing Pod, when it was banned, was a different time in Modern. I actually don't think that Birthing Pod in the format right now would break it. The thing is, it just made those type of decks so consistent that it overshadowed other creature value-based strategies. But I guess you could make the exact same argument for now Court of Calling and even Collected Company. Just getting rid of Birthing Pod has just replaced it with another card. It's the exact same type of list. And is Birthing Pod really too busted for the format? It's really, really powerful with assembling combos. But again, with the Eternal Witness and the Court of Calling type, basically being able to get it back from your graveyard and find 2 cards very easily for like the Kiki Chords and the Maleras and those type of cards is very efficient in Modern. I don't think Birthing Pod, I don't care either way. It probably is too powerful just with how much of a toolbox it is, but yeah, either way I don't really care. So let's go on to the Blazing Shoal. I guess I should highlight over these cards. Blazing Shoal was one of the first cards banned, I believe. It was an Infect deck. You could actually turn to Win with Blazing Shoal on a Glistener Elf quite consistently. The deck just remained banned. Bloodbraid Elf. Bloodbraid Elf is a card that has some contentious discussions. Bloodbraid Elf was banned before Deathrite Shaman, and then they realized it was Deathrite Shaman which was the whole problem to the deck. It was more turn 2 Liliana's than it was Bloodbraid cascading into Liliana. Now, the complaints about this card is it's so random, that either it is so oppressive, like if it hits a Liliana, or hits a Kolaghan's Command, or hits something, I mean, it didn't even exist, I do not believe, with Kolaghan's Command, but if it hits something like that, then the game is just too far out of reach for anyone. But if it ended up hitting like a Thoughtseize, for example, and there just wasn't, or an Inquisition, there wasn't a relative target, then it was kind of a bust. So I'm okay with either. I see the justification with Cascade being kind of a busted mechanic, and it could still break a lot of things in the format. But either way, I'm fine either way. It doesn't. I don't really care about Bloodbraid Elf. I think that it wouldn't bust the format if it was in another Jund list. And it might actually give Jund. Abzan is starting to pull ahead of Jund, and this could actually bring Jund back into the mix. They have been begging for a 4-drop ever since Bloodbraid Elf has been banned. They've tried like Huntmaster and Olivia and Pia and Crondalar and Kalidas and even Tassiger for that slot, and none of them have really been able to really solidify the slot the Bloodbraid Elf once had. So either way, I'm fine with either a banning or unbanning. Chrome Mox needs to stay dead and banned forever. I hate fast mana, and spoiler alert, it's the card that I want banned is going to be a fast mana card that I think is just so degenerate to the format. And if we unban Chrome Mox, you'd see way more of these all-in solitaire decks that don't play Magic. That's not my cup of tea. I don't like that way to play. So especially when we don't have like a card like Force of Will to keep it in check like Legacy does. So I'm not a fan. I think that Modern would have a lot more potential if we weeded out more of these type of decks and more of these enablers. And they've done so in the past with like Summer Bloom and Seething Song and the Rite of Flame, all these fast manas, but we still have a few relics of fast mana that I think need to go out of the format. Cloudpost is one of those fast mana decks that absolutely was too broken in the form of lands. It's just a faster Tron. The current Tron right now is a weaker 8-post. So I think Cloudpost needs to stay dead. Otherwise, we just have a bunch of Ugin Cloudpost decks or Cloudpost Tooth and Nail type decks that are very, very quick. Dark Depths is just too broken with the Vexing or the Vampire Hexmage and other similar cards that just put into 2020. So it's too degenerate. Deathrite Shaman was just too good for a 1-drop. It did too many things. It was very impressive versus graveyard strategies. It could gain you life. It could make your opponents lose life. So it's a Grim Lavamancer, a kind of like a Scavenging Ooze, and a Birds of Paradise all in one card. And that's too much for Abzan and the Jund decks. They were so good with Deathrite Shaman. Dig Through Time, another contentious card. I just think it's too good of sifting through your deck for finding the combo. And even though it's 8 mana and it's double blue, it really never was. And now that the Splinter Twin is out of the format too, Dig might not be as bad of a card. But I think it will just bust too many A, control decks, and B, combo decks in the format. I think Delve, as far as card draw or fixing, was just too oppressive of a mechanic. I don't think that Delve should quite be in this sort of archetype with blue. So I'm okay with it remaining banned because I think eventually instant speed and a turn, look for your win con. These type of decks just make decks too efficient, and one of the reasons why we play Magic is just the variance of Magic. And when you have too many cards like Ponder and Preordain and Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time, it gets so efficient in finding exactly what you're going to do that, yeah, it's probably too powerful for the format. Dread Return is beyond busted of a card for reanimation. There are way too many broken things that can just see Legacy, for example. Eye of Ugin. Now, Eye of Ugin I would be okay with unbanning if they banned the Eldrazi Temple. One of them cannot exist while the other one is the format. Otherwise, it causes the Eldrazi Winter. I actually do think Eye of Ugin is the more powerful card because it ends up being a toolbox card later on. And so I think it's the right ban. Even though that is a legendary land and you can't have multiples out, it's still, in my opinion, the right ban. Gitaxian Probe, the Phyrexian mana is just too powerful. This allowed people to basically play 56 card decks. Death Shadow is already the #1 deck, and this was a very good card in that sort of strategy. We also saw like the blue-red spells, the Thing in the Ice / Young Pyromancer, Bedlam Reveler becoming very powerful with Gitaxian Probe, and it probably needs to go. Glimpse of Nature, just check out Legacy for like elves. You could do an elf ball. It'd lead to a lot of turn 2 kills, I'm sure. The difference between this and Beck and Call with having to splash blue and having a 2 mana is huge. So Glimpse is just too powerful in the elf ball type strategies, and it's never been legal in Modern, so we don't have any like actual sheer data, but basically almost all the cards that are legal in Elf Ball and Legacy minus Gaia's Cradle, and there's a few other cards like the Symbiote that they play are basically legal in Modern, and so it'd be very easy just to build a very similar deck that could go off turn 2 easily with Glimpse of Nature. The Grave Troll was recently banned. It just put Dredge a little bit over the top. I think this was the perfect nerf. This is something I think that Wizards got right, because they effectively nerfed the Dredge deck by not giving it a card that can come out late game and just be a beater. Just, cast this and have a bunch of cards in your graveyard if you have 5 mana. And also effectively nerfed Dredge 2, because the card they replaced this with is a Dredge 4. And so I think that's the right number for a Dredge deck. So they didn't kill the deck. They just nerfed it, which I highly, highly suggest going forward that Wizards does that. So we'll be talking about a card where I think they made the wrong ban and should have done a different card. Greater Furnace talked about Green Sun Zenith is just too efficient for what it does. I think that Court of Calling would just be replaced by Green Sun Zenith. Other than you can't go get specific non-green cards with Green Sun Zenith, but still it's very easy to get the perfect card with Green Sun Zenith. I don't know how. It's just too powerful for what it does. Again, if we're thinking that Dig Through Time is too powerful for blue, then Green Sun Zenith is too powerful for green. Hypergenesis just leads to so many busted things. So each player gets to put in an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land. So ways to actually get past this suspend effect. Yes, they have reworked how a lot of the cards work that can cast this back, but not with cards like Hypergenesis. It can still be cascaded into, and it can still now with the As Foretold could be cast for free. So Hypergenesis is way too powerful. Jace, another very contentious card. I personally think that it's just too good for what it does. It just fixes your hand too much with the zero ability. The Fate Seal ability is very oppressive. So in the right control shells, now that we have an Esper list is really getting good, they have to play other cards in this slot like Sorin at the moment. What do they play? Narset. And I think that Jace would just push those decks. It's kind of funny because you have to be very, very careful with a game like Magic. Because just a slight change of a card could make a deck from tier 2, tier 3 to way tier 1. And I think Jace is just one of those cards that would be too oppressive in the format. I don't know. It's a 4-drop though. It's just not a fun card to play against. I think that's their best reasoning against it. I think this one could be safely tried in the format, but I just, anyone that played against this though, we all still hate the damn card for when it was 85% of the metagame and you just get Fate Sealed locked. All right, Mental Misstep. Mental Misstep is way too powerful to get rid of a 1-drop. This would make combo decks so good and even control decks so good. I hate the card. It should remain banned. Ponder Preordained are fine to stay banned because they're too efficient, and we have replacement cards for them in the fight in Serum Visions and Sleight of Hand. So they're just upgrades to 2 cards that already work fine. Punishing Fire, I think that if they wanted to unban Punishing Fire, they'd have to get rid of the Grove of the Burn Willows combo with it, and that's just a mistake, as this would just punish creature decks too much. Other than, I don't know. Grove would be fine because I think that's probably the right move of banning the uncommon rather than the rare. Rite of Flame, another mana-based card that accelerates. If you have too many of these effects, then Storm is just too consistent, and other decks that just try to ramp. Artifact Land. Second Sunrise was just Eggs. Eggs is still actually viable, and it's just too good with instant speed 3 mana. Made those decks go off a turn earlier than they do now. Seething Song is another ritual that led to a lot of Hive Mind decks and Storm decks being overpowered. Sensei's Divining Top is just a card that would set up miracles, and it's just bad for the format. It's just the card is just annoying to play against. Skullclamp. Skullclamp makes creature-based decks go insane. It has so many combos with card draw. It cannot be safely unbanned. The card was cancer when it was in the standard format, and it's super good in Commander if they're played against it. Usually if a person has this out, they get so far ahead. All right, so Splinter Twin. Splinter Twin is a card that I'm going to go in more depth. We'll come back to it. Same thing with Stoneforge Mystic. We'll come back to it. Summer Bloom, I still think was probably the right ban in the Amulet Bloom deck. Yeah, I agree with Summer Bloom. It just made that deck go off on turn 2 very consistently, and yeah, it's just not a good card for the format. Treasure Cruise made Delver decks very, very good, or just kind of the draw-go decks too good with the ability to delve and draw 3 cards. If you played during this format, you know what exactly I'm talking about. The Young Pyromancer decks took over very, very quickly after Treasure Cruise was legal. We have Tree of Tales and Vault, which are also artifact lands, and we have the Jit, which is probably the least likely card to ever come off this. I don't know. This card is just so good. I had some opinions on earlier videos where this might be okay to be unbanned. Absolutely not. I've played against this in multiple. I have more experiences playing with this now. I played it with it in Standard and just forgot about the power level in Standard. But now, when I've played with it in like Cube and Commander, this card is just so flexible, so good. I don't think it can safely be unbanned. So that just leads us to 2 cards that I actually think that can be safely unbanned. And the first one I want to talk about is Splinter Twin. I did an entire video on this, and so for reference, just go find my video about why Splinter Twin was the wrong ban and why it should have been Deceiver Exarch. I'll try to dig that up for you and link it in the description below. But long story short, Deceiver Exarch was something that dodged Lightning Bolt. It was such a capable blocker with the 4 toughness, and it just came down and clogged it. It was the strong card. If it is replaced, if you actually unban Splinter Twin, they have Bounding Krasis and then Pestermite, which are their options. And there's a few other white cards that are options. Both of those die to the Lightning Bolt, and Bounding Krasis makes Splinter Twin go into green. So it doesn't make the deck as efficient as it could be with just being a 2-color deck, because now 3 colors allows it more susceptible to like burn. Burn would be huge because they'd be fetching and shocking a lot more than the original Splinter Twin. And we also have Harsh Mentor that just got reprinted. Printed. We have a lot of other cards that have since been printed in the format like Authority of the Consuls, for example. They do a very good job of shutting down Splinter Twin. And I think that Deceiver Exarch was the problem and not Splinter Twin. And so Gut Shot could easily be brought in to kill like the Pestermite combo. It's things like the Volcanic Fallout that can't be countered could kill the Pestermite. And there's so many answers that kill either Pestermite or Bounding Krasis that don't kill Deceiver Exarch. And that was the whole problem with, I think, a lot of the games that Splinter Twin snuck. So I think that the format needs a blue control deck. Look what happened when Splinter Twin was banned. We had all sorts of degenerate combo decks just start to become the deck of choice. Another thing is I think that the current meta is very good against Splinter Twin. I think Death Shadow is actually quite good with the Thought Seizes and Inquisitions in the main to rip out the combo and then just start smashing with Goyf and those type of decks. So I personally think that Splinter Twin is very viable to be unbanned in the format. The next card that I think that we should give is Stoneforge Mystic. I don't even think that like Batterskull would be that big of a deal with Stoneforge Mystic. We have cards like Kolaghan's Command. We have a lot of cards now that can, like Stony Silence and things that could just shut down this combo. That I think that it alone would not be too powerful of a creature or an equipment-based strategy. If another equipment, the whole problem with this is then they have to be careful with equipments in the future. But this is a card that has never seen the light of day that might not be that oppressive in the format. We've never tried it. It's just been banned since the formation of Modern. I think it has anyway. I don't think they banned this later on. But if so, it never had the time in Modern to really have any effect. And again, I don't think the Batterskull would put this over the top just because we have the Kolaghan's Command that destroys both. They've wasted a turn. They wasted 4 mana. We have other cards, plenty of other cards in the format that can easily deal with this. And so why not test it out? We can always, just like the Golgari Grave Troll, ban it later on. So let this happen for a season, see what happens, and just ban it again if it needs to be. And it needs, like, that's one thing that I want to really, really hit home with Wizards is they need to have a watch list. They need to say, okay, we're experimenting with this. Don't get attached, Okay, vendors, if you go all in on this, okay, speculators, if you go on in the Stoneforge Mystic, be careful. It can be banned at any given moment. This is a card we are testing. And when they actually explicitly say that, then it's, you know, basically on the person that is building the deck if they want that risk. Because that's one of the biggest complaints I hear about people is, I just foiled out my birthing pod deck and it got banned. And they just cry bloody murder because they think that their collection is worth more than the health of the game, which I will argue till I'm blue in the face with people. That's some of the flack that I got from my last video with Standard, that this is the only way that Magic can regulate its game is by banning. You can't just have an errata, or you can't just have a nerf like Hearthstone can, or Dota. Like a lot of things that happen in Dota 2, I always reference Dota 2 because I play it a lot, is like, yeah, that mechanic was a little bit, or that ability was a little bit too powerful. Let's dumb it down a little bit. You can't do that. You can't just like tack on 3 mana to Stoneforge Mystic, or, you know, look at or have this put on top of your library rather than in your hand. You can't do that. So the only way they can regulate the game is by banning and unbanning cards. And I think this one is pretty safe to unban. And if they need to ban Batterskull, possibly they could do this, and this would be still better for the format by giving another, you know, white tutor card in the format. So that's my discussion about the current cards that are banned. So let's just go over here, and we are going to look at the Boogeyman cards that I want banned. So the first one, of course, was Deceiver Exarch. We talked about that. The other one that's up for discussion is Mox Opal. I am okay with this being basically the only card in the format, fast format, that stays unbanned. As you can see, it really goes in. It does go in a lot of modern decks, like the newly SRAM equipments. What's this one right here? This is probably the equipments deck. No, this is a Scrap Trawler. Ooh, this is like a Crackdown Ironworks deck. Yep, it tries to get out Emrakul. So in Lantern Control, we'll also use Mox Opal. It is played in quite a few decks, but as you can see lately, it hasn't seen a lot of play currently, and it is a big piece for Affinity, which I think is a very established deck. And the thing about Mox Opal is it can really lead to blowouts for the decks that do play it. So if you compare Mox Opal to Chrome Mox or some of these other fast mana cards in the past, I think it's one of the fairer of them. So personally, I'm okay with Mox Opal staying unbanned. So next, I guess the next cards that we should talk about too is like Blood Moon and Chalice of the Void and Ensnaring Bridge. Those I'm personally okay with. You know, I do hate losing to games when my deck can't beat them, especially with like Chalice of the Void. What was happening to me is I would lose a lot of games with Soul Sisters just because people were playing Chalice, not particularly against Soul Sisters, but against all these other decks that were playing a lot of 1-drops, and it was just the worst feeling. But I did have ways around it. I could bring in sideboard cards that could kill it, and anyway, Blood Moon too. They need to, if they don't have Blood Moon in the format, I think they need to bring something like Price of Progress or some other ways to really punish the greedy mana base. And I guess Harsh Mentor can sort of help with that, but it isn't enough. So I think that hate cards are fine in the format right now. As you know, you can only pack so many cards in your sideboard that you can't hate out everything, and it's. Yeah, I don't know. It's up for discussion. Definitely comment section below. Let me know how you think about like Blood Moon and those type of cards. The card though that I absolutely want gone in the format, and it's really the only card that I care that much about getting rid of because it leads to so many degenerate things, and that is Ban the Ape. Hashtag Ban the Ape. I hate this card. And it is the card that is single-handedly keeping me out of Modern. I refuse to play this stupid format until this card is gone. It leads to so many things, and people are like, well, ad nauseum. It's not ad nauseum. That's the problem. I personally am not a fan of ad nauseum because it's a solitaire deck, so it doesn't really... What I mean by solitaire is it doesn't really interact with you. It's trying to solitaire out, if you've ever played the solitaire card game, and to try to find its little combo. So it's something that, yeah, I'm either way. I don't care. It's fine. It's one of the more fair combo decks because it takes turn 4, turn 5, turn 6 to really consistently get there. What I hate about Simian Spirit Guide is this BS right here. So let's pull up all these stupid decks. All of them have no business running Simian Spirit Guide, and all they're doing is trying to ramp out an earlier turn card than it should be. So if you look at these prison decks, they are trying to get out a quick Blood Moon is what they're trying to do, or a quick Chalice of the Void to lock out cards as quickly as turn 1 or turn 2 to lock out decks. And then at that point, people can't get an answer for Blood Moon. They can't get an answer for Chalice of the Void. They get completely locked out. Another thing it can allow to do is get out an early Nahiri or an early Chandra. And this deck, I mean, take out the Simian Spirit Guide, it still works. It's just a turn behind. It takes away that huge variance part of this deck. This is now white-red control without a way to cheat a turn. Or the worst is when you have 2 Simian Spirit Guides. Yes, I have lost on turn 1 to many, many decks running Simian Spirit Guides. And any deck that can enable something like that, I think is just not good for the format. And this is the problem. So let's look at like Amulet Titan. This one particularly doesn't run Simian Spirit Guide. Yeah, let's try to find a list that does. Because they do run it, and I've lost to it many times. All right, so the one is the Through the Breach. Let's find a Through the Breach list. And most of them do run Simian Spirit Guides in the list. I mean, they're calling it Valakut Breach. And, well, now I'm not finding one that does. But again, see, this deck completely works without Simian Spirit Guide. The problem with Simian Spirit Guide is it ramps them a turn ahead with like Through the Breach or some of their other cards that they try to get out, like even an early Primeval Titan. With Simian Spirit Guide with Primeval Titan, it makes it so if you get this out on turn 4 or turn because you've ramped in with a Secure Tri-Builder, you get your value back from Simian Spirit Guide because it's getting a land to sort of replace it. So yeah, they show up every now and again. They show up in these Through the Breach, these other red decks to get out the earlier cards to ramp up a turn early. It just allows for like even a turn 1 Farseek, which doesn't seem like it's that great, but that's huge in a deck that's trying to get to the Primeval Titan. So maybe this one had it. Not finding any Simian Spirit Guides in these specific ones. Another card that it has no business being in is like Skred, and I've seen Simian Spirit Guides be used in Skred because it can get out either a turn early Koth or a turn early Blood Moon, and you can see that some decks have not adopted it, some decks have adopted it, and I just don't think that they should have that sort of ability to put them in. The other one that I hate it in because it leads to very, very early kills is this Living End. As you can see, Living End, it just tries to get out an early Fulminator Mage or an early Violent Outburst when they can go first turn, cycle a card, second turn, cycle 2 cards, and then third turn, they can drop a Simian Spirit Guide, cycle another card, and still cast a Demonic Dread or a Violent Outburst. And that way they have 4 cards in their graveyard, and that's usually enough to kind of get it going. Another thing is that they can do an early Fulminator Mage to destroy land on a turn early, and then they're just so far ahead they basically time walk their opponent. If you get rid of Simian Spirit Guide, it does nothing to this deck except dumb down its power level. It stops those degenerate turn 1 and turn 2 things. So that's the other one. The last one I want to talk about with the Simian Spirit Guide is Goryo's Vengeance. And Goryo's Vengeance is just completely broken with the Simian Spirit Guide. Because this was one where I think they do need the Simian Spirit Guide. It allows for like a Faithless Looting, a turn 1 Faithless Looting into a turn 2 Simian Spirit Guide and Goryo's Vengeance. So you loot away the Grizzlebrand on turn 1, and then turn 2, you can Goryo's Vengeance. I mean, just right there, you can Goryo's Vengeance on turn 2. So you can do it on Simian Spirit Guide a lot more efficiently by finding things you need with that extra mana. And it can also ramp out the Fury of the Hordes if they're playing this version. So this is where you can exile 2... No, it doesn't ramp this one out. What's the one? Yeah, Through the Breach. You can ramp out a Through the Breach if you've drawn it with Gristlebrand, for example. If you've drawn a ton of Simian Spirit Guides, you can actually then just go through another, like, Through the Breach and get another card out, like an Emrakul out that turn. It just leads to some very, very busted scenarios. So for those reasons, it's not really the ad nauseum deck that I can't stand the Simian Spirit Guide. It's all this other stuff. And I haven't even touched on a bazillion decks. I've seen it in the equipment, the SRAM's, the SRAM Cheerios base deck. I've seen it in just, again, decks that just have no business running it. Have the old Breaking and Entering deck, before that was nerfed, ran the Simian Spirit Guide. And for that reasons, I think it's terrible for the format. And yeah, I don't like it. Anyway, apologize for the 30-minute video that I'm all over the place, but hey, you get both. You get the well-edited videos and the rambly videos of my opinions on what I don't want in the modern format. So in a recap, Simian Spirit Guide should be banned. That is the one card I want banned at the moment. The other ones on the discussion I'm okay with, Hate Cards and Mox Opal. Either way, I don't think I'd feel... I can see the argument. I'd be fine either way, unbanned or banned. Cards that I want unbanned would be Splinter Twin for Deceiver Exarch and the Stoneforge Mystic. Other than that, I think that Modern is starting to progress in a more healthy direction. I think they can use some more oversight, and the main thing that I think that Modern needs is a spotlight. Otherwise, there's no reason to play the format. I've talked about this again and again and again on my channel. What they should do is something similar to like Dota 2, is they should add a compendium to Magic the Gathering Online that just gives you dailies. $10, buy it. You can get rewards for it. Have all that money go into a pot, or even at local game stores. Have people, similar to what they just handed out for the pre-release, those little trials. Hand out something like that they can bring back player reward system. Make people actually pay for it. Make them pay $15, $10, $15. All that money goes into a pot somewhere for them to do an end of season or end of year or whenever they want to do it. Massive Modern tournament. That way the pros don't have to worry about it affecting their pro ratings and everything else that they don't like. And the people that are actually interested in Modern that will qualify it via these local scenes and stuff like that can actually participate in a format that they enjoy. The same can be done for any other format. And I think that Wizards is just dropping the ball on a highly popular format that could easily pay for itself and have its own tournaments. Anyway, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.